He was from hip-hop tycoon to one of the biggest US criminals. P. Diddy built a billionaire empire, attended parties with the biggest names in Hollywood, and lived a life surrounded by luxury. But what no one knew was that behind the scenes, he was involved in a dark world of trafficking, blackmail, and secrets that are now being revealed. From the top of the music industry to your shocking prison, this is the history of the rise and fall of P. Diddy. Believe me, the details of this case are creepy, and you won't want to lose any seconds in this story. Before we continue, already subscribe to the channel and enable notifications not prepared. So let's dive into the secrets that Diddy tried to hide from the world. Sean John Combs was born on November 4th, 1969, in the Harlem neighborhood of New York. He came into the world at a time when the streets of New York were taken by violence, drug trafficking, and organized crime. From an early age, Sean's life was marked by challenges and the influence of a dangerous environment. His father, Melvin Combs, was a former US Air Force military, but was seduced by the crime world. Melvin worked as the associate of Frank Lucas, one of the most notorious heroin traffickers of the time, whose criminal empire inspired the film The Gangster 2007. Melvin's involvement in drug trafficking turned out to be his ruin. In 1972, when Sean was only 2 years old, his father was brutally shot dead inside his car in an ambush at Central Park. Crime has never been completely solved, but evidence points to a possible retaliation within the world of trafficking. This devastating loss left a deep mark in his childhood. After the murder of Melvin, Sean's mother, Janice Combs, had to assume the role of son's provider and protector. Working as a model and teaching assistant, she did her best to keep Sean away from the streets and the influence of crime. Despite the financial difficulties, Janice has always emphasized the importance of education and hard work. As a teenager, Sean studied at Mount St. Michael Academy, a Catholic school located in Bronx. During this period, he developed a strong personality and a natural talent for business. He was known for his confidence, charisma, and always finding creative ways to make money, whether selling sweets at school or organizing clandestine parties to teenagers. In addition to faro for business, Sean has always had an intense passion for music and entertainment. Inspired by icons like James Brown, Michael Jackson, and Run DMC, he began to imagine a future in the hip-hop world. It was at this time that he received the nickname Puffy because of his explosive temperament when he was annoyed. Even with his mother's effort to push him from crime, the environment around him was dangerous. Many of their childhood friends got involved with gangs, drug trafficking, or ended up dead before the age of 20. Sean, however, seemed determined to follow a different way. At the end of adolescence, he joined Howard University, one of the most prestigious historically black universities in the United States, located in Washington, D.C. There, he studied business administration, but it was not long before he started to stand out in the musical environment. He organized parties and events that attracted thousands of students, consolidating his fame as a promising young entertainment. This phase of his life, marked by tragedy, ambition, and the pursuit of success, shaped the mindset that would make him one of the biggest names in the music industry in the following years. But while he built his career, past shadows and dangerous connections would never cease to chase it. After his time at Howard University, Sean Combs decided to abandon his studies to follow his true passion, music. He knew the entertainment market was fiercely competitive, but his determination and strategic vision would make him one of the greatest hip-hop typical. In 1987, at the age of 18, he got an opportunity that would change his life. Through contacts in the industry, Sean got an unpaid internship at Uptown Records, one of the most promising record labels of the time. Founded by Andre Harrell, Uptown was known for mixing hip-hop with R&B, bringing an innovative sound to the market. From the first day, Sean stood out. While other trainees did only the basics, he worked days and nights in a row, often sleeping in the office. His tireless energy and his ability to identify talents soon caught Harrell's attention. Shortly thereafter, Sean was promoted to the director of A&R, Artists and Repertoire at Uptown Records, an extremely important position in the music industry. As director of A&R, he was responsible for developing and shaping the career of several artists, including Mary J. Blige and Jodeci. His marketing talent was evident. He knew exactly how to position an artist to achieve success. But Sean was not just limited to music production. He turned the image of Uptown Records, creating innovative disclosure strategies. He understood that aesthetics and lifestyle were as important as music. Her work with Mary J. Blige, for example, turned her into the hip-hop soul queen, combining rap and R&B elements with a strong visual identity. However, his desire to innovate and his dominant personality began to create tensions within the label. In 1993, after several disagreements with Andre Harrell about his ambition and working methods, Sean was fired from Uptown Records. For many, this would have been a great defeat. But for Sean, it was just the beginning of something even bigger. Without wasting time, he decided to found his own label. In late 1993, Bad Boy Entertainment was born, a seal that would revolutionize the hip-hop industry and turn Sean Combs into one of the most powerful producers in music. With Bad Boy, he already had an ambitious plan, finding and launching new talents that could dominate the music charts and make his label rival with the industry giants. It was at this moment that he met a young Brooklyn rapper named Christopher Wallace, better known as the notorious B.I.G. With his business beef and talent for promotion, Sean was about to reinvent hip-hop and create a musical empire. But at the same time, success would bring new enemies and plunge your life into a network of conflict and conspiracies. In late 1993, Sean Combs, now known as Puff Daddy, founded Bad Boy Records. He knew that his label would need a strong artist to stand out in the competitive hip-hop scene, and found this star in a young Brooklyn rapper named Christopher Wallace, better known as the notorious B.I.G. From the beginning, Sean saw in Biggie an unparalleled talent. With his striking voice, authentic lyrics, and stories that portrayed the difficult life on the streets of New York, he had all the ingredients to become an icon. In 1994, Bad Boy released Biggie's debut album, Ready to Die, which was an immediate success. Songs like Juicy and Big Poppa dominated the stops, and the label began to gain notoriety in the market. But Sean didn't just want to sell records, he wanted to turn Bad Boy into a cultural empire. He used his marketing vision to create a strong visual identity, where his artists always appeared wearing luxurious clothes, driving extravagant cars, surrounded by an air of glamour. This helped create the image of the Bad Boy as the rich and successful label, in contrast to rival Death Row Records, which emphasized the violence and brutality of the streets. Bad Boy's meteoric rise bothered Suge Knight, the owner of Death Row. The rivalry between the two record labels quickly intensified, especially after the hiring of Tupac Shakur by Death Row in 1995. The hip-hop industry was divided into two blocks. On one side, the Bad Boy, representing the East Coast with notorious B.I.G., Mace, and others. On the other, the West Coast Death Row with Tupac, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg. The situation became even more tense when Tupac was shot in 1994 in a New York studio shortly before being sentenced to prison. He survived, but believed that Diddy and Biggie were behind the attack, which began one of the most infamous rivalries in rap history. As the conflict intensified, the bad boy continued to grow. In 1996, Sean launched his own career as a rapper, collaborating with his artists and solidifying his name in hip-hop. His style was different from traditional rappers. He combined commercial letters with captivating melodies, creating a sound more accessible to the general public. The label also invested heavily in fashion, with Sean launching her Sean John brand, which would become one of the most influential brands of the time. He was not just selling music, he was selling a lifestyle. But behind the success, there were intrigue, betrayal, and a climate of war. In September 1996, Tupac Shakur was murdered in Las Vegas, and many began to suspect that the bad boy was involved. The accusations against Sean and Biggie gained strength, and the war between the labels was about to take an even more tragic course. Bad Boy's success seemed unshakable, but what happened in the following months would change the course of hip-hop history forever. At the height of Bad Boy Records' success, Sean Puff Daddy Combs has become one of the most influential hip-hop figures, but the brightness of his empire began to go out when the rivalry between the East and West back reached its darker point. On September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur was shot dead in Las Vegas. The crime shocked the world and further intensified tensions within hip-hop. Many fans and industry figures pointed to Diddy and Notorious B.I.G. as possible suspects due to the warned war between Death Row and Bad Boy. Suge Knight, head of Death Row Records, took the moment to spread rumors that Diddy would have ordered Tupac's death. This theory fed hatred among West Coast fans, making Biggie Smalls a walking target. Despite the growing tension, Diddy decided to move on. He took Biggie to Los Angeles in early 1997, where the rapper would promote his new album, Life After Death. What should be a business trip eventually turned into tragedy. The night of the death of Biggie. On the night of March 8, 1997, Diddy and Notorious B.I.G. they attended a party at Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. The event was full of celebrities, and security was visibly disorganized. Around 00:30 on March 9th, after the party was closed due to overcrowding, Biggie and his team entered a black GMC Suburban. Diddy was in a separate car just ahead. While the Bad Boy train was waiting at the traffic light of the corner of Wilshire Boulevard with Fairfax Avenue, an Impala black Chevrolet approached slowly. Without warning, a man lowered the window and fired 4 shots at Biggie, reaching him fatally. Diddy's team and the security guards panicked. Biggie was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center but could not resist the injuries. The rapper died at the age of 24, leaving behind a gigantic legacy and many unanswered questions. The accusations against Diddy, Biggie's murder, shook Bad Boy Records and raised suspicions about Sean Combs. While many saw Diddy as just a businessman shaken by the loss of his greatest artist, others began to suspect that he knew more than he said. Behind the scenes, theories began to emerge about their involvement, including Diddy would have devised Biggie's death to gain attention and boost his own career. He knew Biggie was in danger and used him as bait to get rid of a growing problem. Reports that Diddy was in contact with Los Angeles gangs at the time, which would have facilitated the murder. Although no concrete evidence has been presented linking Diddy directly to the crime, he quickly capitalized the tragedy, releasing the song I'm Missing You, a Biggie tribute that became one of the greatest hits of his career. Even with the ongoing investigations, Biggie's case has never been solved. To this day, there are speculation about police involvement, Death Row Records, and even Bad Boy members in the murder. The emergence of the most dangerous man in music. After Biggie's death, Diddy reinvented himself. He left the shadow of his pupil and built his own career as an artist, releasing the album On the Way Out, 1997. The album sold millions and consolidated Puff Daddy as one of hip-hop's most lucrative names. But behind the brightness of the awards and luxurious parties, there was a dark side that few people knew. With the absence of Biggie, Diddy began building a parallel empire, involving in secret business and dangerous relationships. From this point, Sean Combs was no longer just a visionary entrepreneur, but a man wrapped in mysteries, conspiracies, and accusations that would grow over the years. After the death of notorious B.I.G., Sean "Puff Daddy" Combs became the face of Bad Boy Records and the main beneficiary of his record label's legacy. But instead of shaking with the tragedy, he turned pain into an opportunity. His single, "I'm Be Missing You," released as an honor to Biggie, sold millions of copies and dominated the music charts. The commercial success of the album No Way Out, 1997, has consolidated Diddy not only as a producer and entrepreneur, but now also a world-renowned solo artist. In the 2000s, Diddy expanded his empire beyond music. He invested strongly in fashion. Your clothing brand, Sean John, became a hip-hop fever, moving billions of dollars. Alcoholic beverages made strategic partnerships with brands such as Ciroc Vodka, becoming one of the largest influencers of the luxury market. Reality shows. He produced and starred in programs such as Making the Band, consolidating his image in pop culture. But as his fortune grew, his lifestyle became increasingly extravagant and dangerous. Legendary parties and the first dark rumors. Diddy quickly became synonymous with luxury, excess, and legendary parties. His mansions in Miami, Los Angeles, and New York were the scene of events that gathered celebrities, models, entrepreneurs, and politicians. His events were known for champagne, exotic cars, and millionaire jewelry, models and celebrities at private and secret parties, presence of members of organized crime, traffickers, and suspicious figures. But behind the scenes, scary reports began to emerge about these parties. Many guests reported that Diddy's parties were not just luxury meetings, but stages for illicit activities, influence trafficking, and abuse of power. Some stories that started circulating in the music industry included use of illegal substances unbridled, secret recordings of guests in compromising situations, threats and blackmail against rival artists and entrepreneurs. Many who tried to expose these practices were silenced or mysteriously away from the musical environment. Connections with underworld and violence behind the scenes. Despite his success, Diddy also accumulated enemies. He was accused of being involved with gangs and criminals who protected his business and eliminated threats. In 1999, Diddy was arrested after a New York club shooting involving his then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez. Although it was innocent, its name was stained by involvement with illegal weapons and aggressions. Other suspicious incidents began to surround him. In 2001, a former Bad Boy producer, Steve Stoute, was physically assaulted by Diddy after a quarrel. In 2004, a journalist who was investigating behind the scenes of Bad Boy was threatened and forced to abandon the story. Artists who left the label began reporting abusive contracts and intimidation. Diddy became more than a music tycoon. He was now a man wrapped in mysteries, surrounded by power and protected by a network of dangerous allies. But this world of glamour and impunity was about to crumble. In the years following his peak in the 2000s, Diddy was no longer just a tycoon of music and entertainment, but a name constantly involved in scandals, investigations, and dark rumors. His businesses were still growing, but his name began to appear in lawsuits, accusations of violence, and investigations into money laundering and human trafficking. The Bad Boy empire begins to crumble. Although it was the most influential record company of the 1990s and 2000s, Bad Boy Records began to lose strength. The main artists of the Seal, such as Mace, the Lox, and others, accused Diddy of abusive contracts in which he retired rights to music and royalties, leaving artists without much of their profits. Many musicians started leaving the label, and several made explosive statements about how Diddy controlled them financially and emotionally. Former artists claimed that Diddy used tactics such as psychological manipulation to keep artists under their rule, veiled threats if they tried to leave the label, use of legal contracts and loopholes to continue profiting from their former employees. At this point, Diddy was no longer just a music entrepreneur, but a figure that aroused fear in many. Accusations of human trafficking and secret parties, rumors about Diddy's private parties began to intensify. People who attended these events reported obscure activities that happened behind the scenes. Several former employees, security guards, and guests reported that there was trafficking in women and models for exclusive parties of millionaires and entrepreneurs. Some celebrities were secretly filmed for future blackmail. The consumption of illicit substances was unbridled and supposedly tolerated by Diddy himself. At this point, reports that he kept a dossier about important figures in music, politics, and cinema began to emerge, feeding the theory that he manipulated and extorted powerful people to keep his empire intact. Aggressions and millionaire processes. Between 2007 and 2015, Diddy was sued several times by both former collaborators and strangers. Some of the most serious accusations included 2007, accused of ordering a brutal beating against a former employee who would have leaked sensitive information. 2010, a promoter revealed that he witnessed Diddy's meetings with organized crime members to resolve business by law. 2012, a security guard stated that Diddy kept people in private jail during parties, confiscating cell phones and banning the exit without permission. 2014, Diddy was involved in a violent fight in a gym where he allegedly attacked a sports coach with an iron weight. With so many legal problems, Diddy began to become a target for deeper investigations. FBI, CIA, and IRS began to monitor their transactions, business, and suspicious connections. It was a matter of time until the pieces began to fit in and Diddy's empire collapsed. The music tycoon was losing control, and his own allies began to turn against him. But the worst was yet to come. Behind the scenes of the Diddy empire, confidential investigations were already underway. For years, rumors about their criminal schemes had circulated, but until then, nothing concrete had been proven. Between 2016 and 2020, however, federal agencies began to set up a solid case against him. The FBI, CIA, and IRS began to track their financial movements, their private events, and their links with the underworld of crime. What began as an investigation into fiscal evasion and fraudulent contracts has become something much greater. A web of corruption, trafficking, and blackmail behind Hollywood and the music industry. Explosive complaints. Internal sources began to collaborate with the investigations. Former employees, former friends, and former Diddy's charges began to report everything they knew. Among the most shocking testimonials were private parties and influence trafficking. Celebrities, businessmen, and even politicians were secretly recorded at these parties. These images would be used to blackmail and manipulate powerful people within the entertainment industry and politics. Dirty money and money laundering. The FBI found that Diddy used ghost companies and counterfeit contracts to move millions without paying taxes. In addition, there was strong evidence of involvement with cartels and money laundering to criminal groups. Aggressions and threats. Several former securities and former assisted reported that Diddy had the beef and intimidate anyone who threatened his reputation. Some of these people have mysteriously disappeared or were forced to leave the country. Silenced witnesses, a former business partner who planned to write a book, Expando Diddy, died in a suspicious accident in 2018. Other journalists who tried to investigate his life reported threats and persecution. The FBI advances, Diddy at Mira. By this time, Diddy was no longer untouchable. He began to realize that the investigations were closing around him, and his behavior became even more paranoid and aggressive. Sources claim that during this period, he started traveling less and reinforced his safety. It has broken down from some of its suspicious assets and bank accounts. He tried to negotiate behind the scenes agreements with politicians and entrepreneurs to avoid his fall. But the tests were accumulating, and not even their money or connections could prevent the inevitable. Diddy was still loose, but it was a matter of time until everything collapsed for good. From 2021, Diddy's life began to crumble irreversibly. FBI's secret investigations were coming to the final stage, and more people close to him began to speak. For years, he has managed to keep his crimes and secrets well hidden, silencing witnesses with money, threats, or mysterious disappearances. But now, former friends, former employees, and former business companies were exposing their true face to the world. The breaking of loyalty. Ex-friends reveal everything. Mace and other former Bad Boy artists. Rapper Mace, one of Bad Boy's first big names, opened a public war against Diddy, accusing him of exploring artists financially and spiritually. Other former SEAL artists confirmed that Diddy had an abusive contract and used threats to keep his musicians under control. Security and personal employees. In 2022, a former segment revealed that Diddy organized exclusive parties where crimes occurred, and that some guests did not leave the same way they entered. A former personal assistant confirmed that Diddy secretly recorded his guests to use them as a lever in negotiations and blackmail. Women and models who attended their parties. Models began to denounce that they were coerced to attend Diddy's private events and that they felt arrested and threatened. Some women filed lawsuits claiming that they suffered abuse and psychological manipulation. Documents and recordings leaked, the proof of the crime. While the testimonials increased, concrete evidence began to emerge. Suspected bank statements connecting Diddy to secret accounts and illicit operations. Leaked recordings of private parties where celebrities and entrepreneurs appeared in compromising situations. Conversation audios where Diddy allegedly threatened witnesses and former employees. With the whole world following the revelations, Diddy was increasingly cornered. He lost millionaire contracts, his label declined, and Marks began to cut ties with him. But the final blow was yet to come. The year 2024 marked the beginning of the end to Sean Diddy Combs. For decades, he used money, power, and influence to protect himself from scandals. But now the siege was closing. After years of investigations, the FBI, the CIA, and other federal agencies were ready to act. Diddy was no longer an untouchable tycoon, and the evidence against him became indisputable. The fatal blows against Diddy, the loss of business partners, big brands such as Ciroc Vodka, Revolt TV, and other companies associated with Diddy cut their ties with him. Investors moved away, and their businesses began to collapse quickly. New criminal processes and complaints. Several victims have opened civil and criminal processes against Diddy, accusing him of abuse, extortion, human trafficking, and aggression. Former seguranças confirmed that Diddy paid gangs to intimidate rivals and eliminate threats. Journalists discovered documents linked Diddy to international money laundering operations. The media and public opinion against him, TV shows, documentaries, and journalistic investigations have begun to expose all Diddy's obscure crimes and secrets. Public opinion turned completely against him, and even former famous friends began to walk away, fearing being dragged into the scandal. Escape and paranoia. Diddy was seen traveling constantly and reinforcing his personal security, as if he already knew that something big was about to happen. Reports indicated that he tried to hide money and assets in accounts abroad, but authorities were already monitoring all their movements. With all the pieces fitting, it was just a matter of time until justice finally reached it. And then, the definitive moment has come. In early 2025, Sean's empire, Diddy Combs, finally collapsed. The man who built one of the greatest musical seals in history, who accumulated billions of dollars and powerful connections, was now trapped by justice. After years of investigations and complaints, the FBI, the CIA, and other federal agencies launched a massive operation to arrest Diddy and its members. FBI Mega Operation, the arrest warrant. In February 2025, federal agents issued an arrest warrant against Diddy with accusations of human trafficking, money laundering and extortion, aggressions and abuse, criminal conspiracy, Diddy's arrest. In a film-worthy operation, FBI agents surrounded their mansion in Miami and held their live arrest. Helicopters and vehicles surrounded the scene while the agents invaded the house and removed it handcuffed. Television cameras captured the exact moment when Diddy was taken in custody, shocking the world of entertainment. The reactions and the final collapse, Hollywood and the panic music industry. With Diddy's arrest, many powerful figures began to fear that they were the next. Some celebrities distanced themselves quickly, pretending that they never had involvement with him. Witnesses begin to close the siege. After his arrest, several witnesses agreed with the government, delivering new explosive events. New leaked documents and audios revealed that Diddy had a blackmail and manipulation system for decades. Condemnation and sentence. During the trial, the evidence was so crushing that it was clear that Diddy would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The former tycoon of the music was sentenced to decades of prison, without guarantee or parole. The last chapter of Diddy. From millionaire parties, luxury cars, and a global empire, Diddy was now just an anonymous prisoner. The fall of one of the most powerful men of music served as a warning to the whole industry. Thus ended the story of Sean Diddy Combs, of one of the brightest entrepreneurs of entertainment to one of the most infamous criminals in U.S. history.